Fellow Guyanese, fellow listeners to our usual weekly Straight Talk program, let me welcome you once again to another of our series, which I believe you have found very useful over the past few months. Today we will speak about turning the tide. Before we go, however, to turning the tide, let me remind you that today, the 21st of February, voting has begun in Guyana. Voting precisely meaning those who are qualified to vote are now going to cast their votes. And today, the discipline services, with the exception of the Guyana Fire Service, are currently casting their votes in different parts of the country. The total number of police that will be casting their votes is 7,702 policemen, 3,036 soldiers, and 488 prison officers, bringing a total to 10,226 are the amount of disciplined members who will be voting today, the 21st of February in Guyana. On March the 2nd, 660,988 voters throughout the length and breadth of Guyana will be casting their votes, 90,000 more than it was in 2015. They will be voting at 2,352 polling stations across the country. Foreign observers have already arrived in the country to observe voting. A total number of 111 foreign observers are in Guyana, including the Carter Center, 10 of which are present, the European Union. There are 57 observers currently in Guyana. There are 14 observers from the Organization of American States. There are 12 from CARICOM and 18 from the Commonwealth, bringing the total number of foreign observers so far to 111 in Guyana. We welcome all foreign observers, and we believe that they will do a great job in observing the electoral process in Guyana. Now let us turn to what I call turning the tide. By turning the tide, I mean the tide has been moving in a particular direction which has been against the wishes and against the interests of the vast majority of Guyanese. This is not a direction which we would like the country to continue in, notwithstanding all the talk about don't stop the progress. What we would like to stop is the direction in which the tide is moving, and that is why we are talking this morning or today about turning the tide. For 5 years, almost 5 years, the tide has not been moving in favor of the great majority of Guyanese people. The workers, the sugar workers, the rice farmers, and the farming community in general, the small, medium, and large size businessmen have all been complaining and would like this tide to turn in a direction that brings them greater relief from their suffering in whichever endeavor they may be involved in. And so on March 2nd, we have this opportunity. We have to grasp this opportunity to turn the tide. We have to take the opportunity that will be provided to each and every one of us on March the 2nd to make a change in our lives. We want this change. They are the great majority of people in this country who have been clamoring for change. Well, it is not too far away. Already the discipline services are voting for change. And change in the direction that will bring them greater relief for their families and themselves and the future generation of our country. We, the civilian population, will have this opportunity on March the 2nd to change the direction of the tide, to turn the tide, as it were, in order to bring greater service and benefits to the overwhelming majority of people. Apart from turning the tide, we can also say we want to tip the balance in favor of the great majority of people in this country, the majority of whom have not received any benefits whatsoever from the APNU-AFC administration. They would wish to take this burden off their shoulders and to breathe life into whatever they may be doing, whether it's work, whether it's play, or whether it's at leisure. And so they tipping the balance in favor of the working people, of the small, medium, and large-sized business people is what we will have the opportunity to do on March the 2nd. We want to move from step A to step B, meaning we want to move from denial to restoration. All that has been denied of the people since May 2015, and the legion of issues, needs, wants, demands that have been denied of the Guyanese people. And so on March the 2nd, we will want to move from denial to restoration. That is to say, to restore all the benefits that the Guyanese have been enjoying under the previous PPPC administration. And those benefits have brought tremendous relief to the great majority of the Guyanese people. So moving from denial of the benefits to the restoration of the benefits is the opportunity that will be presented to us on March the 2nd. Secondly, we want to move from tax burdens to tax relief. The number of tax burdens that have been placed on the Guyanese people number over 20 to 30 different types of burdens and taxes that have been placed on the backs of the Guyanese people. And so on March the 2nd, we will have the opportunity to throw off these burdens and to move from tax burdens to tax relief. With greater tax relief, there's more money in circulation. There's more disposable income in the pockets of each and every Guyanese. These monies have been sucked out of the system. Over $80 billion in taxes are being collected now just for one section of the economy in our country. And so greater tax relief breeds more life, breeds greater relief into the lives of the Guyanese people. Thirdly, come March the 2nd, we want to move from corruption to transparency and accountability. We want to end to all the corrupt exercises that have been taking place in Guyana. And we want to move from corruption to transparency and accountability. Only recently, large swathes of land have been allocated to companies operating outside of Guyana at a time when the government is still in a caretaker mode and not authorized to dispense with the national patrimony of our country insofar as lands are concerned. These are questions that have been raised recently by the leader of the opposition and many others in our country. And therefore, this question of moving from corruption to greater transparency and accountability is something that we will have the opportunity to address on March the 2nd. Fourthly, there's another movement we would like to see take place following the elections on March the 2nd. And that is movement from joblessness and homelessness, where every Guyanese would have a job and have a roof over their heads. We've had too much talk and a lot of promises about jobs, to the extent that the government, Mr. Granger himself once told this nation, that is not for the it's not for the government, it's not for the state to find jobs for people. But we believe that it is the responsibility, it is the social responsibility for any government to create jobs, to create wealth, to ensure that the country is developing a dynamic economy, attracting investors, and not just investors who are carpetbaggers to rip off our country. We're talking about investors that have corporate responsibility, that see their duty as investing in the country and also their duty in employing local people with the necessary expertise and skills to what is called technological transferring the knowledge to the local people so that they will eventually be in a position to administer enterprises of a similar nature. So moving from joblessness and homelessness to greater employment and more homes at a cheaper rate where people are able to take more mortgages at a less burdensome rate is something that we have to make sure that come March the 2nd that this happens in our daily lives. Finally, we want to move from poverty and want to prosperity and plenty. Moving from poverty and want to prosperity and plenty is something that will affect the lives of all Guyanese. That is to say, when a country's economy is booming, when greater wealth is created, when greater security is created, and when the entire atmosphere and environment in the country makes it much more easy for people to be productive, for Guyanese overseas in the diaspora to return to our country to make their contribution, this is what prosperity and plenty will bring to the country. Right now, the extent of poverty, the extent of want is so existing all over the country that we do not want to keep ourselves in that situation come after March the 2nd. So on March the 2nd, we will exercise the right to live in a better Guyana, or we can exercise the right to live in a worse off situation. It would seem to me, from my conversation with many Guyanese, that we want to exercise the right on March the 2nd to live in a better Guyana. And let us not worry about this promise about a good life. The good life has turned out to be a bad life. The good life has turned out to be a worse life than people ever experienced in their entire lives, especially between following the 2015 elections. And so, my friends, your vote is going to be extremely critical. This is a measure, this is a step you will take to change your lives and to change the lives of all of us who live in the country. Your vote is inextricably linked to the future of Guyana. Every single vote that counts makes a change in the direction which the tide is flowing. All our individual votes cumulatively will bring about this change in the direction which Guyana is going. So a vote, the vote that you will exercise on March the 2nd, when taking all the votes, the 661,000 votes into consideration, that will put in place a government that will change the direction in which the country is going. And I mean change the direction and change the government from the one that we have now, that is stagnating, that has bound or binded the hands of our country to the extent that the country has basically stagnated. And so your vote is your power. That ballot paper is a power in your hands that you will exercise, that you will cast in order to change your life, first and foremost, to change the present government, and to change the direction in which the country is going. Elections day is extremely important. But let me emphasize, what is even more important is what is called the day after. or the morning after. So just as important is elections day itself, March the 2nd, I would not wish to minimize the importance of March the 2nd, the day when we all go to cast our votes. But equally important is what happens after, what is called the morning after. And therefore, we have to gird our loins, be on the alert, and be prepared for any eventuality. We are hoping, we are praying, and we are working that there would not be any untoward eventuality. In other words, we're hoping that with all the observers in Guyana, with the atmosphere that has been created in respect of a free and fair elections, that the morning after will be one that will be peaceful and would have no kind of social or political unrest. Our duty is to vote not only for a change of government, not only for a change of lives in our lives, but to vote for peace, progress, and prosperity. That is what is called voting responsibly. When you vote for peace, progress, and prosperity, you vote, you exercise what is called the responsible vote. You exercise that power in a responsible way because you want to ensure peace for the country, you want to ensure prosperity for the country, and you want to ensure progress for the country. Not only for the country, but also for our individual lives as well. So it is important that we do not vote for what we do not want in our lives. It is important that we vote not to continue what we've been living with for the past 4 to 5 years. We must vote for change for the better, change for the best. And that means voting for the People's Progressive Party, Civic. Let us not waste our votes. Let our conscience be our guides. We vote to turn the tide. We vote to turn the wheel back to where it was just before 2015. We must let our conscience be our guide. Vote for the common good. Vote for a progressive Guyana. Vote for a peaceful Guyana. Vote for a Guyana that will be prosperous, in which every man, woman, and child would benefit, irrespective of what social standards, what social status they hold in our country. Thank you. Until next time, let us keep the peace. Thank you.